Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. This is Active Dogs and I am Val Darts, a dog trainer here in Ventura, California. Welcome, and today's topic is going to be for those of you who are just thinking about going to adopt the dog, or for the ones who just brought the adopted dog home and possibly need some guidance. Okay, there are so many dogs out there that get adopted, then they get dropped off few days, few weeks later. So this video is to set you for success in your new journey as a dog owner. Adopted dogs rock. They are a lot of work, but the love that you get from them is just so amazing. So let's begin. I have 10 different things that you need to do or you need to know, and watch the video until the end. Number 9 and number 10 is very, very important. Okay, some of this you might know, some of this you might not. Let's begin. Number 1. So out of the shelter into new home, you need to start right with setting the boundaries. Every relationship, right? You want to set the boundaries to the start. With people, with dogs, the same. And what do I mean, set boundaries? When you bring a new dog home, number 1, do not let them just roam around the place. Keep the dog on a leash, preferably. Okay, maybe like a longer leash that have the dog tethered to you as you walk around, do your thing. What you do by then is you preventing the dog from making a mistake, from going and potty somewhere in the house, from going chewing something or getting possessive over something. Okay, so it's very important to set the limits. Do not introduce the dog to the whole house if you live in a house, okay, or even in a bigger apartment. Like, introduce the new area step by step. You have to remember the dog was in the shelter. You don't know how long the dog was in the shelter, so you don't want to really just drop it on him right away. Okay, the next, make sure you close some doors. Also, the good idea would be, which is number 2, is create a safe place for the dog. A lot of people like the crate, and crate is great, when you crate train your puppy and they love it, you make them love the crate. This is their safe haven, right? That's the one thing. But when you get a dog from the shelter, the dog might not like the crate. Okay, so I would still try the crate, okay, and I would make it super awesome for the dog. I would feed the dog in a crate, okay, and teach the dog right away, like when you put the food in there, or when the dog gets in the crate, say, yes, great, treat. Okay, so create the space where the dog can be without really doing much damage. Okay, so it's either you're gonna gate a certain area in your house where the dog is gonna stay when it first comes to the house, but the dog doesn't get to roam around. Okay, I am reading from my notes because I don't want to forget anything. So now, if the crate doesn't work, please don't get discouraged. When I got my dog, I think he was about a year and a half old, maybe 2. The crate, no, he was not thrilled with it at all, and I've tried everything. Okay, so but it's really good if you can kind of limit the dog, movement around the house. Number 3. So number 3 is try to time your adoption to where you can spend, a week or 2 at home with the dog, or someone is always going to be at home with the dog, or maybe living just for very short period of time. Why do I say that? Is when you get the new dog, you don't know like really what to expect. The dog might have separation and anxiety, okay? And also when you bring a dog to a new home, usually they're still pretty scared or cautious, and they're like, you know, and then you leave them there and they're like, oh my gosh, what is going on right now? So you definitely want to time everything to where you can work with the dog, bond with the dog a little bit, and do little tryouts, you know, to how the dog is going to react when you leave for 10 minutes, you know. I'm actually going to make a video about separation and anxiety and how to work with it. A lot of dogs have that, okay? But I find that very helpful, that you actually have time dedicated to your dog until the dog gets adjusted to where it can be left home alone. Okay, but you definitely want to give yourself at least few days to figure things out, you know? Which brings us to number 4 is find a dog walker. Like, we all have jobs, okay? So you're probably not gonna be able to, you know, unless you're retired or work from home, like you're probably not gonna be able to be with the dog there all the time. So you need to, speaking of giving yourself the time, you need to find somebody who is going to be helping you. Like, let's say you're single, like it's just you and the dog, right? In this case, you definitely want to introduce a dog walker who is going to come when you're at work and walk your dog, okay? Also, you might have to look into options of maybe boarding your dog. So that's why I'm saying in number 3, you need to give yourself time, because you need to figure out all those details out. When I first got my dog, I was literally just shocked because I couldn't get anybody to walk my dog. Well, no, I could get somebody. He just didn't want anybody. He nailed every single dog walker to the wall. I have a German Shepherd, as you might see from all of my thumbnails, but that was a big deal. And I've tried to take him to someone else's house. One time he escaped. Like, that is something that a lot of times the dog will wind up back in the shelter, because people, when we get the dog from the shelter, we think like, oh, it's gonna be love, like we'll like each other right away. Well, yes, but there are gonna be problems, and you need to think of all those problems, and you need to think how you're gonna deal with them properly, okay? Number 5, and it's a very important one, it goes back to the boundaries. Guys, before you even bring the dog out, create a schedule, create a feeding schedule, create a walking schedule. Dogs love structure. Dogs don't like change. So when the dog is coming to your house, it's a change for him. It's scary, okay? So definitely create a schedule and stick to that schedule. Once the dog gets up on the schedule, there's going to be less possibilities of accidents, you know, and things are going to settle in better. And also the schedule, the structure lets the dog know that you are actually the one in charge, okay? Number 6, we're going to that. Guys, when you get a dog from the shelter, there is a really high possibility you're gonna have to potty train the dog, and you need to be ready for it. However, potty training the dog is really not so hard. Honestly, you can potty train the dog like, I mean, I've always done it within a few days, and yeah, every once in a while I get the accidents, but those are only when the dog has like some kind of upset stomach, like a freak thing going on. But potty training might be on the table, so you definitely want to look up the videos, read some books, how to properly potty train the dog. I am definitely not the person to be like, oh, just get the wee pads. Wee pads are so easy to stick around forever, by the way. So, and to me, it's just, especially if it's a big dog. Like, I remember when I first got my dog, and I wasn't a dog trainer then, and I called the dog trainer, and she was like, well, too bad, just like find a designated area on your balcony and he can just go to the bathroom, like if you cannot get dog walkers. I was like, well, that's not exactly working for me, okay? So potty train your dog, and just know that you might have to do that. So prepare your house for some possible accidents. If the dog was in the shelter for a while, even if the dog was potty trained before, a lot of times they are gonna untrain in the shelter, okay? Now, number 7, know that you don't know each other. What I mean by that is, you go to the shelter, you fall in love with this dog, right? And you think it's all great, and how it usually happens, the shelter person comes, brings the dog, checks your place where you live, if it's suitable for the dog, and drops the dog off and leaves, right? Well, and we're so excited, right? We're so excited. But you have to understand, like, you only know what the shelter told you, okay? And they might not know everything, okay? They, you know, the way they feed the dogs, you know, some shelters really work and their trainers go and work in a shelter with dogs, but a lot of times they'll be like, oh, okay, the dog is skittish, he seems to be okay with other dogs, he seems to be scared of everything. Like, you'll know certain things, but I had a client reaching out to me because she and her husband adopted this beautiful Australian Shepherd. And you know, like, those dogs don't really last in a shelter. Everybody wants, you know, a fluffy, beautiful little thing. So, and the dog was amazing. Like, it was, she sent me the videos, like how he does all the commands, and they had a dog before. So, but the dog was completely out of control. It had no respect to her whatsoever. It actually beat her like on a day 3 or something, because it got on the couch and started chewing on the pillow, and she tried to take the pillow away from the dog, and he bit her. So when you get the dog from the shelter, you don't know the dog. So what you need to know and keep in mind, that you should not approach the dog if you just put the food in a bowl, right? First of all, you should always make the dog work for the food, for toys, for everything. That will set up the right tone that, hey, I have to earn everything that's in the house. That goes back to tethering the dog to yourself. That tells the dog, I even have to earn the right to have a space to free, you know, to roam around, right? Next, when you feed the dog, you know, when you get the new dog, I would actually maybe the few days just give the dog, you know, food from your hands. You know, make him work for it, feed him, make him work for it, feed him. You know, then maybe even start with the ball in your hands and put little pieces in a ball, you know, and hold on to the ball. Why I said that? Because I got lucky. My dog absolutely not protective over anything, but there are dogs, and a lot of dogs are protective, and especially if you have children, you have to be really careful, because again, you don't know the dog, you don't know how it's going to react. So let's not set the dog up for the failure. The same goes to toys, bones, you know, like if the dog is playing with a toy and you think like, oh, I'm gonna grab it and play tug of war. Well, you don't know. Like, you have to be careful. Now, another thing, probably do not let the dog up on the furniture, you know, the first few weeks, you know, like until you get comfortable with the dog. Because again, when the dog gets on the furniture, it gains height. So it might start showing like a different behavior if the dog is down on the floor. So that's another thing. So basically what I'm trying to say is, while you're bonding with the dog, you need to be very careful, and also introducing the dog to friends, taking the dog to dog park, for instance, letting the dog off leash, all things like that, you have to be very, very careful. Okay, yes, sometimes you get lucky and you get a dog who is just amazing, and he's friendly and so on and so forth, but some dogs, they might have ended up in a shelter because of certain issues. And you have to keep that in mind when you get the dog. And that leads us to number 8, bonding. And again, speaking of, give yourself some time to actually be with the dog. It is going to take a while before you really bond with the dog. Why? Because, even though they might get clingy to you and be like, nice and everything, but they still will be a little like suspicious because they don't know. So you will need to, how do you bind with a dog? You bond with a dog, sorry. You walk him and you train him and you play with him, okay? So, for example, a lot of people will get the dog and the dog, like if the dog acts a little, scared, and you try to comfort him, you run after him, like, okay, day number 1 from the shelter, the dog is kind of freaked out, for example. What you don't want to do is constantly baby talk him, try to get into his face, oh, poor baby, I love you. You do not want to do that, okay? You want that dog to be comfortable. Yeah, he is on a leash, he's kind of forced to follow you around, and that is good. That is telling the dog that they follow you, okay? Then every time you give the dog the food, you make him work for it, okay? And that makes you bond with the dog. For example, my dog, he wanted nothing to do with cuddle. He was like all neurotic. He was like all, so for him, me like fetching for him, that made him love me more. Like I still like sometimes go like, oh my gosh, are you using me for fetching? But anyways, it's very important to give time to the bonding. And sometimes I know one guy, and he's always laughing about it because he has this massive lab mix, and it's so adorable. And it's like, that dog is all over me. I'm like, I love the dog. And he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. He was like, when I first adopted that dog, like it wouldn't bond to me for like a year. So don't expect this, imprinting happening right away. Yeah, sometimes it happens, but still not right away. I loved my dog, but the first 3 months, OMG, I was like, especially first 30 days, I would say, it was like, what have I done? I don't even know if I should have a dog now. I thought I had a great lifestyle for it and everything, but there were so many challenges that can come up and you're not expecting. So give yourself time, okay? So number 9 is, I put that be very careful introducing dog to the strangers, to your friends, because you don't know how socialized the dog is. And I have to say, like, the dog might just bite somebody, so you definitely want to maybe, like, if you go for a walk with your friends, right, like, go for a walk, but have them not even acknowledge the dog. Don't look, don't touch, like, and that works because, for example, my dog, if somebody just start like getting into his face, he's gonna freak out. Like, even now, he's been with me for 3 years, he still has like this little things when I can tell when a person starts doing something or getting like over his head. You definitely want to be careful with all that stuff. It's a new dog. You need to get to know the dog, okay? And number 10, it is the most important one, and you need to know this. The dogs, when they get adopted and being brought home, they go through like a decompression period. And I watched somewhere, another dog trainer, somewhere, someone said it goes in threes. 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, okay, and then 3 years. So the first 3 days, you're not gonna see the dog that's actually the dog. Like, he's gonna be careful, he's probably gonna be like, or he's gonna be scared and crazy and maybe even acting out. So you have to understand, the dog that you see when you first get, gotta let him time to decompress. It really takes them a while to get used to new environment. Try not to push new things on him too soon. However, do take him with you as much as you can, on walks, show him things, and gently, very gently, but be patient, okay? If the dog maybe snarls at you, barks at you, do not make rash decisions. You definitely want to contact your local trainer, or just contact the trainer, maybe like even have a phone conversation, because so many people will bring the dog within first 3 weeks back to the shelter, whereas the dog probably was fine, but people get scared, people get worried. But again, for that not to happen, if you follow the first 9 steps, and you are very careful and you're very mindful of what you do with your dog, most likely it's gonna be great, and even if your dog has some issues, a lot of issues, are manageable and also trainable. Of course, not all of them, and sometimes, dogs with like behavior issues, and sometimes it's psychological, genetical, or whatever. So you probably know like what kind of dog you want by now, or if you saw a dog in the shelter you love. But in general, if you go through the steps, and guys, if you like this video, please share, like, subscribe. That will help more people to see my videos, and that will set more dogs up for success. And also, if I missed something, and I probably did, please do leave it in the comments down below. Share your experience, how or what happened, because if you guys share your experience with me in the comments, or maybe ask me questions so I can make new videos, and I'm gonna try to make videos weekly or twice a week, okay? So thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.